As you can see, it is that time once again for the weekly part of this show that we like to call T.I.D's Kick in the Head. And this week, joining me, none other than, former NXT Tag Team Champion, apparently a really cool video game player, because that's what he does now. And we'll say questionable eyes for talent, because his business partner, well, we'll get into that later on as well.
Sure.
I'm talking about Tyler Breeze, former Tyler Breeze, now just Breeze.
That's it.
Right? How you doing, brother?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Take me back all the way to the beginning, because I try to put these timelines together on people's, careers and how they broke down. And yours, I mean, wow. So let me see if I got this. You started off, okay, you're originally from BC, right?
That's right.
But you have your first match and you're living in Alberta, right?
Yeah. I moved over to Calgary to train with Lance Storm.
Okay, but before that, you were already working.
I was not.
Oh, okay.
I was not. Lance Storm was, I trained with Lance in January of 2007. And then I finished up with him in March of 2007. And then started working immediately in Alberta. And I lived in Alberta for like 3-4 years. And then I kind of went over to BC, did a couple shows here and there. But yeah, Lance was the start of everything.
So when you were, who pointed you in Lance's direction?
Honestly, I just stumbled upon it. So I was kind of looking at, what the options were, and you know how it is, just kind of being stuck in the middle of nowhere, Canada, trying to figure out how to navigate this whole thing and how to go to the States and everything else. So all I really knew was what was attached to WWE. So at the time it was OVW. And I went, all right, I guess I have to go to Louisville to get trained and then, try to do the developmental stuff and whatever. And I had no clue what I was getting into. And so I was like, man, this would be a lot easier if there was like a local wrestling school or something close. So I'm literally just kind of like, all right, OVW, I'm corresponding with them. I'm talking to, the receptionist there, and like, all right, so I just have to save up all my money and then go there because I can't work in the States or anything. So I'm trying to make this plan. And all of a sudden it must have just popped up on Google or something of like, oh, the Storm Wrestling Academy. And I looked and I went, wait, that's in Alberta. That's right next to me. I can still work. I can just go there. Yeah, I'm going to do that because, I grew up watching Lance and I know that he's good and all that other stuff. So it just it was just dumb luck that I stumbled upon it. And I think he was only in his first 2 or 3 years of training people at that point. So I was one of the earlier ones, and it worked out nicely.
So he runs those camp styles.
Yes.
Right. What is it? What was he doing?
He was three months.
Right.
Yeah. So it was January to the end of March, and then away you go. And
then that was it. Who else was in your class with you?
No one. Yeah, no one that ended up, kind of going on to do stuff. There was a couple guys who were very good, but they just decided not to pursue it, and it just kind of turned into what it turned into. But still a couple of buddies that I'm still friends with and stuff like that. But yeah, they just never really they got the taste of it, and did maybe a couple indies here and there, but they really that was kind of the end of it.
Could you imagine like the amount of people that go through these things? The amount of people that don't make it anywhere out of some of these classes and that start off, and I know for myself, all of the training and over the years and who you see come and go, it's unbelievable the amount. So you finish off there and then boom, thrown to the wolves. Mm-hmm. Where do you go?
Well, there was a local, so then comes, what do I do from here? How do I get working? And luckily Lance was really cool. He was, he was like, hey, just so you know, like, do you have your gear? Like, you should be out there going, because he knew that, I should pursue this kind of thing. And so there was a local promotion just outside of Calgary and Lethbridge that had popped up. It was called Power Zone Wrestling. It was PZW. And they were actually doing pretty good. They were putting on some good shows. And I had a couple of guys that I'd met who were working there. And so I just kind of caught a ride, went down, got booked, did my first show. And then I stuck on with them. And then they were kind of like my local show for the month, like 1 show a month or 2 shows a month. And then from there, I met a couple of guys who were working in a promotion called PWA for Calgary and Edmonton. So then all of a sudden I got on with them, and then now I'm working 3 or 4 times a month. And then I actually started branching out, because again, you just meet people and they go, from place to place. And then I started meeting a couple guys, one guy named Danny Duggan, who was a Winnipeg guy, and he got me booked on these Ernie Todd tours where we'd kind of go in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Damn it. I was racking my brain, right? because I knew that like I was sitting there looking at thinking the timeline in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would have been around. So that would have been like guys like Vance and
Vance
guys
Savatti,
like
yep.
Randy Myers
Oh
would have
yeah,
been
yep.
around for you back then, right? Okay.
So Randy, funny enough, he was actually the guy who signed for me to help me get my passport because I needed like a character witness or whatever, and he just happened to be the guy who signed to help me get my passport.
Listen, nobody's a better character than Randy fucking Myers, but
Right.
So and then so I was racking my brain because I knew that Tony Condello had stopped doing the tours and a bunch of stuff had gotten sold off in like areas, almost like it was a territory. And I think that like Frank from Ontario had taken some, and I think that Danny is now doing some, but I couldn't remember who else took it. And as soon as you said that it was Ernie Todd, I was like, that's exactly who it was.
Ernie was running those reservation shows, and I like he never did, full death tour style where like Tony used to go up in the middle of nowhere. Ernie was a little bit more, but I mean, it was also all over the place. Like we got booked on that, and it was you'd start in Ontario and then go to Alberta and then back to Ontario and then go to Winnipeg. And it was like, man, we're literally just showing up, do the show, unpack the ring, drive, and like it was kind of crazy, but it gave you that tour feeling. And actually at that point, which is funny because they were bought shows and everything, you'd actually make like better money than anywhere else. So I do these shows. I met some connections. I got to travel around Canada a little bit to places where I'd never been and just kind of start getting your feet wet on what wrestling's all about, which it's great. I can't recommend it enough. Like stumbling upon those type of things, that's where you learn, man. That's where you like, being crammed in the back with luggage and just being like, all right, this is cool for 8 hours. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the worst dues or whatever you want to call it. So
dude, I can remember like I did me and some of the boys did a couple of those like out east. The Maritimes, like because Emile Dupre used to run Grand Prix.
Yeah. I could never get on. With him.
After those, they had a group called Real Action Wrestling, Raw, and it was run by Cowboy Mike Hughes and Kingman. Were out there. They used to do a lot of stuff with Emile. Right. Sure. And then some guy started his own thing. So they had us all out there. And that's exactly what it was. We'd be out there for a couple of months at a time, just doing the circuit, doing the same circuit, loading up 8 guys into a van, getting pissed off at, Todd Douglas because he's peeing in a bottle in the back of the thing and trying to throw it out the door. And it's just like, but at the time you're like, this is the greatest thing in the world.
Oh yeah. There was nothing like, I'm telling my job. Like, I don't think I held a job for more than a couple months. Cause I'd be like, hey, I got to take the weekend off. And they'd be like, I don't like this, but I'm going, man. I'm going to make my $20 and do whatever and just have fun,
Wait, hold on. You weren't smart enough to be the quote personal trainer?
Never.
Like everybody else in the business?
Nah. Nope. Never, ever.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right. So you do the Ernie Todd kind of death tour, the Wish You Were Dead tour, I guess.
Yep.
And then you hear about the tryouts.
Yep.
And you go to a couple of the tryouts, right?
Yeah. So that was FCW time. So I'd kind of been doing the independent stuff for, I want to say 3 years. And so, 2007 till about 2010. And I just started to realize like, it's kind of all the same, like where you go, it's all the same. Like there might be a different place, but I'm really just kind of, doing the same types of shows and whatever. So I went, you know what, let's, I want to be in WWE. That's the eventual goal. I said, why don't I just try to go down there and see what I'm missing? Like if they tell me why I'm not hired yet, then I can work on that. And now I have a goal, you know what I mean? Otherwise you're just going to, toil away on the indies for years and years. And so a tryout popped up and I saw it. And I asked Lance, I said, hey, what do you think? Should I go check this out? And he goes, yeah, why not? Like, just, go down there. And at that time it was different. It was a paid tryout. So I had to fly myself down, put myself up in a hotel, pay for the tryout, which I believe was $1,500. I had no money at the time. So I'm just maxing out credit cards on flights and hotels and trying to get this. So I go down there and there's about 60 people at that tryout. And the gimmick of the tryout was like, oh, we'll hire one person at the tryout. So no matter what, somebody gets a contract and then there might be more from there. And so I went down there, just kind of, met Steve Kern, met Billy Kidman. Lance had put in a word with me for Norman Smiley and Edge. Edge was one guy down there that he knew was going to be a guest coming in. So he kind of like, said, hey, I got a guy going down there. Just keep an eye on him, whatever. And so I made some really good connections, made a good little impression down there. They ended up hiring Jinder Mahal out of that one. And then I think a couple other people too. And so I got my little, feedback email and it was just basically, work on this. And I went, all right. And so I think 6 months went by. I kept kind of working on what they wanted to work on. And TJ, Tyson Kidd, brought me to WrestleMania. And I saw Steve Kern there, who runs FCW. And I go, hey, Steve, how are you? And he goes, hey, how you been? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, another tryout coming up? And he goes, I do. And I was like, all right, I'm thinking of coming down. And he goes, cool, man. We'll see you there or whatever. And I asked Lance again. I said, hey, is 6 months enough time? Like, should I go down there? Or are they going to be like, nothing's changed? You know what I mean? And he goes, let me ask. And he asked Norman Smiley, and Norman said, yep, definitely send him back down. And I said, all right. So another $1,500, another, plane ticket, hotel, everything, go back down. This time 80 people. And I go, oh, like, how are you supposed to stand out with 80 people? And like, not even just an average 80 people. There was a lot of like the big indie guys at the time. Like I think Michael Elgin was there and Joey Ryan was there. Robbie E was there. There was a lot of like, I guess, independent name people there. And I went, oh man, Tony Nese was there. And so I'm looking around and like, I'm a young kid who's like, I've never been like a big jacked up dude. So I can't rely on like my body. I'm like an okay wrestler, but like, I'm not, I don't really have personality. I just kind of have a general base of where we're starting. I'm very, young in the business still. So I'm looking around and I'm going, man, these guys are like grown men, like jacked up dudes. I don't look like Tony Nese. Like that guy looks good. You know what I mean? I'm watching these guys. And within about 15 minutes of us starting to do some in-ring stuff, I ruled out like half of them. And I went, oh, these guys can't move. These guys can barely run. This guy can't do this. A couple guys got into like a shoot fight. And I'm just like staring at Steve Kern. And he's like,
hold on. Who got into a shoot fight?
There was one kid. It was a kid from New York. And actually another Lance guy. His name was Chase. And I saw them like start rolling around. And then they start shooting on each other. And then they start yelling at each other. And like Steve's just kind of going like, they know they're at like a tryout, right? And I said, I guess. And so I'm just laughing and I'm watching like that 80 just turned into 40 real quick. And I went, all right. So then I'm just kind of, going in there, I'm doing my thing. And the main thing was like, I'd check in with Steve and I'd go, hey, just, checking in, how am I doing and everything else. And, he'd be like, hey man, you're doing good. Keep doing what you're doing. And just kind of like, making the connections of letting them know you're a human being. And then at the end of the 3 days or 4 days, they gave away that contract and I ended up getting it. And I went, holy crap, man. What are the odds of this? And I think I even asked Steve afterwards, I said, not that I'm complaining or anything. I said, but like, why the hell did you hire me? You know what I mean? And he went, honestly, he goes, it came down to you and Tony Nese. And I just went, whoa, like me personally, I would hire Tony. Like Tony looks great and he's athletic and he could do all this stuff. And he said, but the main thing is he goes like, Tony didn't talk to us. Tony didn't say hi. Tony, like we didn't know who he was. And I went, oh, okay. So like, because they thought I was a good kid or whatever really made the difference. So it was like, okay, like that's, I guess that's more important than, other stuff that you can be trained in and everything else. But, wrestlers are a dime a dozen, the deal. So.
Well, that's the biggest thing. And you said it yourself, and I'm sure you probably know this even more now that you are training, is that you can teach people as long as they're teachable.
Yes.
As long as they're trainable, you know what I mean? Then you've got the rest of it covered, right?
That's right.
If they're not trainable, it doesn't matter how good they are or what they can already do. Yeah. I'm curious to know though, like when you got that first feedback letter that first time around, what was on it? What were they looking for that was different?
In all honesty, I'm pretty sure it was just a generic, like, hey, thanks for showing up kind of thing. Like, I was, I think maybe 180, 190 pounds at the time. So it was like, oh yeah, get a little bigger. And then I don't even think it went that in depth on like other certain things. So like, it wasn't like work on your selling, work on your character, nothing really. It was just kind of a generic, like, I don't know. I think I showed Lance. I was like, what do I make of this? And he's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't that specific. Because, for the most part, again, it was a paid tryout. So as long as they gave away the one contract, you check the box and it was like, we made some money, you know what I mean? So I don't think it was too in depth on stuff. There was probably only a handful of people that, really kind of got a look or talk to some people.
It's funny because the same thing happened to Hornet. NXT referee Adrian Butler. Same thing happened to him, from here. He was wrestling. He had gone down for a couple of tryouts. They told him the same stuff. Like you've got everything. You're just not big enough. You're not big enough for what it is that we're looking for. And that was a real weird moment for him. I know because I had talked to him about it at the time. What do I do next? Yeah. Right. So that's what this conversation is going to be about, because this is it. So you got your beginning stuff. And then you're like, okay, now I go to Lance's school. What's next? Now, the next part from there is I end up in FCW. I do these tryouts.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to yourself, right? You're like, oh shit, it worked.
Yeah.
I just got signed. So now what's next?
Well, and so that's where, and again, we'll harp this all the time, especially now because we're coaches.
Right.
You got to use your coaches, man. Like, just because you finished the course, and this is where you can tell a good school from a bad school. Just because you do the course and the course ends, it doesn't mean that you never talk to your coach again. I mean, you can, but what's the point? You hired them as a coach. Like, you got to use them. I used Lance, again, for that whole 3 months. Any question I ever had, I text him or emailed. I would send every match I had and go, hey, what do you think on this? And like, hey, there's a tryout coming up. Should I go? Should I not go? Because they know he's already been there. He's already done it. You know what I mean? So when I went down to FCW, it was, and this was also like wrestling goes in cycles a little bit where they hire. So especially that time, Johnny Ace was in charge of hiring, and he was very much I think I met him several times, and he would go, "How tall are you?" And I go, 6 feet. And that was like, you have to be 6 feet or over at least for him to even continue the conversation. How much you weigh? Like 190, get over 200. Okay, cool. And like, I've tried for 35 years to try, you know what I mean? But it just doesn't happen. So that was the thing. So at that time, I was right around the change in the hiring process where they had hired a bunch of big jacked up dudes who couldn't, put their right foot in front of their left. And they tried with them for however long. And then all of a sudden, someone looks and goes, why can none of these guys work? Why can none of these guys move? You know what I mean? So then they start hiring the Cesaros and the Seth Rollins and the Daniel Bryans. And so the smaller guys, size doesn't become an issue anymore because you can go in there and actually put on a match without falling on your face. So I snuck in kind of at that time. And, I was right around there because I think there was Seth and there was Ambrose and all those guys that were coming in. And I snuck in there. And the first day when I got there, we were still kind of at the end of that gigantic guys that were there. And I went, holy crap, like these guys are monsters, dude. And I remember texting Lance and I went, Lance, how am I supposed to survive down here, man? Like these guys are huge. These guys are monsters. I don't look anything like them. Like, what am I supposed to do? And he just went, they hired you for a reason. Like, just let it play out. And he goes, I'm telling you, like, don't get intimidated. You know what you're doing. And I went, okay. And, all of a sudden a Friday comes and you see most of those guys get fired, and all of a sudden I'm still there. And now you just kind of get in the rotation of things and you see other guys who you think are better than you and they're not, and they end up getting fired too. And you go, okay, it all kind of evens out eventually. You just got to keep your confidence. There's a reason why they hired you and everything else. And again, any question that I ever had, it was always, I'd ask Lance and I go, hey, what do I do here? What do I do in this scenario? What should I do? How should I talk to this person? And so he would kind of guide me on, what to do next kind of thing. So when you got down to FCW, it was really all about don't get freaked out and learn from all of these guys who are hopefully going to prepare you for the next step, which is, being on the FCW TV, which is then going to go to dark matches, which is then going to go to Raw or SmackDown. And so you just kind of, keep your confidence up and focus on whatever, the next goal is.
Yeah. You gotta look at it this way as well, dude. Like they hired you clearly because those big guys that you're talking about, they all have heads on them like mine. Looks like a half-eaten cabbage. You look the way that you look, and they're like, this is going to look really good on TV. You know what I mean? Let's call it spate.
I think at the time too, when they hired me, I was like 22, 23. And so I was like one of the youngest kids there. And it was just like, I think Steve even told me, he's like, you honestly, he goes, you reminded us of Brian Kendrick, the way that you look, the way that you move, your athleticism and all that stuff. And he goes, we need more of that. And I said, all right, cool.
Who was the first guy that greeted you when you walked through the door? Like after your contract, you leave, you got your contract, you leave, right? You get your shit together back home and you make the trip to move. Did you toss all your stuff in a car? A moving van, it's just like the next day you're like, no, Canada, I'm out of here.
No, so it takes time for the visa process. So I think I got hired in June or July. Yeah. And so they just said, sit tight, we'll let you know when all the stuff goes through. And I think it was right before Thanksgiving. So I came down like the weekend or whatever of US Thanksgiving. So November. Yeah. And I honestly, I had no clue what to do. I didn't know how to, rent a place. I couldn't rent a place. I had no social security number yet. I had nothing. So Jinder Mahal was a buddy that I'd worked with. And I went, hey man, I said, can I stay with you? Like, I have no clue. And he said, yeah. So he had a one little tiny 1-room apartment. And so I packed everything I could into one bag, and I got on a flight. I came down there. I was sleeping on a inflatable mattress in his living room with my one suitcase with stuff. And he took me to Express to buy some like dress clothes, because I had no dress clothes. And you just slowly kind of figure out what's expected and where you're supposed to go. And at that time, Dr. Tom Pritchard was the head coach, and he was awesome, man. He was just the coolest of like easing you in and just being like, yeah, it's all good, man. Calm down, relax. Cause he could see just fear all over my face of like, oh God, I made it. But it's like, what do you do now? And he's just like,
It'll
take some time, relax.
So you're laying there one night, you're on this air mattress in the middle of the night, and you're looking up at the ceiling, and all you're thinking to yourself is, did Randy Savage have to do this? You know what I mean?
Well, and the funny part too is like that air mattress, when I went to bed on it, it started off full, but I would wake up on the ground every morning.
Right.
And I went, man, this is like, I made it to WWE. Like my checks are from WWE, but I don't have a room, and I don't have a house, and I can't even get a car and everything else. And like, man, if I didn't stay with Jinder, I don't know what the hell I would have done, because again, it takes time to go and get your social security number and go and do all that stuff. So like there was a good chunk of time there where I don't even think I could get paid. So I got paid once I got my social security number, which was probably like, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks after. So, wow. You know what I mean? It's a culture shock, man, going from, small town Canada to all of a sudden you're in Tampa and you're part of WWE and you're, just trying to keep up.
And you're homeless.
Yeah. Essentially. Yeah.
Literally, I'm a WWE superstar on my way, but I'm homeless at this point.
That's right. Fully homeless. Yeah.
So you obviously embrace it, and you're doing well. I know that you've talked about this before, and I wanted to ask you about this. You always had this fear, you said, of getting fired right out the gate.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Was it just the overall vibe, or was it something specific towards you that made you feel that way? You know what I mean? Or was it just like I said, just the overall vibe of the company that's like, oh shit, everybody just kind of walks on eggshells around here?
Definitely not like specific towards me. I think it was just a general feeling of like, I remember Lance, even telling us when we trained, like, when you guys make it there, save your money, because it does not last long. Like the average person's career at the top, wherever you want to go, of making money is like 5 years. So I went, okay. I said, like, I'm going to have that mentality even from developmental. Like when WWE starts giving me a check, I'm assuming that my 5 years starts right then. So I'm not going to take advantage of it or kind of squander it. I'm going to try to make the best of it. So when I get there, almost, I think within like a couple weeks, if maybe a month, they had we used to call them Black Fridays, and all of a sudden people would get fired. And so you'd see people get fired and go, man, how long was he here? And it was like, 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 3 months. And I went, whoa, like that's okay. If you're not getting it within like 3 months, you might be out of here. And that used to be very consistent, like usually every 3 months we would have a firing like on the dot. And I went, okay, I don't want to be in that block at all. So, once you get there, you get a little bit, you lose your confidence a little bit, or you start to question, whether you're actually good enough to be there and stuff like that. So you get a little bit shook and a little bit shaken. And at that time too, I was very much just a wrestler. Like if you wanted me to wrestle and do some moves and jump around, I could do it, but I couldn't cut a promo to save my life. I put zero effort into a character because I very much relied on the athleticism and the wrestling part of it. Where I almost, liken it to like a Shawn Michaels when he was in the Rockers. He, luckily the Rockers got over and they were an awesome tag team and everything else, but he didn't become the Heartbreak Kid until he discovered that other part. And I was Mike Dalton, who was very much a Shawn Michaels rocker guy. And I didn't become Tyler Breeze until I found that, the Heartbreak Kid missing character, promo, confidence. And that took so long, and a lot of tries to find. But sometimes you don't get all of those tries. I got very lucky where I'd almost get fired and I'd squeak by, and I'd almost get fired and I'd squeak by. And, by all accounts, I chalk it up to my connections, having people vouching for me when I'm not in those meetings and stuff like that. But I got very, very lucky on several occasions to even get to that point where I could figure it out,
You mean that Lance wasn't doing Thursday night Here, watch me do a promo. Right?
We did promos in Lance's, but my personal preference was I always liked the wrestling part. I was very much a Brett, Shawn, wrestling guy, and not a Hogan promo guy. And that bit me in the ass because eventually they go, hey, cut a promo, and I couldn't do one to save my life. And I went, oh man, I don't know. I didn't put any importance on it. And then you realize, oh, that's literally the only thing that matters. And I can, do just enough wrestling to get where I need to go. And then you clue in and then you become good. But I had, just not focused on it at all and just really chopped my own legs out on that one.
Right. Because they're looking for a character. Like they're looking to see what the character is. And they're very much, this is what I've noticed from the people that I know and stuff like that. They're very much down. Once you're down there, they're like, what do you got? Give us an idea. Give me your ideas. Just flood us with all of your ideas so that maybe one day we'll give you a writer.
Yeah. Well, and it's a combination too. So, a lot of guys, they come in and you go, all right, I'm here. What do you got for me? And they go, well, like we have, at that time we had probably 50 people. Now they have 150 people.
Right.
So if you have 150 people going, I'll just wait till, you got something for me. That day will never come. So you have to go in and go, hey, I have this idea. What do you think of it? And then now they can add on to your idea because you spurred their creative process to start. But if you're just one of the 150 that are sitting against the wall going, when it's my turn, it's my turn. Well, if a year goes by and you haven't done anything, then they're going to go, is this guy really an investment? And it doesn't matter how athletic you are, what you look like, how big you are. None of that stuff matters if you're not proactively trying to get them a return on their money. You know what I mean? And that's just business. That's just the business part of it, where why would I continue to pay you if there's no return at all? You know what I mean? And we just kind of get lost in that fact of, they'll come up with something eventually. Like, I'll be on Raw and SmackDown eventually. Well, no, you've got to go out of your way to be a good employee, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're not hiring the guy that just came off of the indies.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be repackaged and everything like that. So at what point did you come up with the leg tassels?
So that was always an idea that I had. And I did that on the indies, actually. My very first gear that I ever had made had the boot tassels and everything else. And I think I liked them because the British Bulldog had them. And I went, okay, I'm going to have these things. And I just liked them. And then I made it to FCW, and I think I took them off. I had something else, and I just kind of had generic-y type of indie gear or whatever. And then when I came up with the Tyler Breeze thing, I went, man, I should bring these back, and I should make them fur, because I thought the fur ones would always be cool. And then it just matched perfectly with this male model character and everything else, to where I went, oh yes, this is the guy who should have this. And it all just kind of came together. But I had them initially, and then I dropped them, and then I came back, and they fit perfectly.
Was it while watching Zoo? Like at what moment were you sitting at home going, man, I'm trying to come up with something new, and you put on Zoolander? Or was it just, has it always been one of your top movies that you know what I mean?
I would like to say I was that proactive, but it was very much a necessity at that point. I'd been there, I don't know, I was there for maybe 3 to 6 months, somewhere in there, and they were about to fire me. And then I got saved. Then I was there another 3 to 6 months. I was about to get fired again. I got saved again. And then again, it was about 3 to 6 months. And we had evaluations, and I got called in, and there was a couple people in there, and they basically just roasted me. And, maybe you're not as good as we thought you were. Maybe you think you're better than you are. And I'm sitting there just going like, what? Like, what is happening here? Like, this is the worst evaluation of all time. I'm very clearly getting fired. I'm just going to sit here and take it, I guess. And, by the 5-6 minute mark, I'm going, you know what? I'm just going to start firing back, man. I'm going to go down swinging. And I just start throwing stuff back, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And finally, the guy who was in charge of TR at the time, he goes, let's end it there before it kind of gets out of hand. And I went, yeah, whatever. And I walk out of there, and Xavier Woods is standing right there, and he goes, how'd it go? And I went, oh, dude, I'm fired. Like, there's no way I'm still here. That was the worst evaluation of all time. And he goes, okay. He goes, I have to stay here for training or whatever. And he goes, we lived together at the time. And he goes, go home. And he goes, come up with like 3 or 4 characters. He goes, when I get home, we'll film some stuff. He goes, we'll make little videos, and we will send them in. And, if they want to fire you after that, at least you tried. And I went, you know what? Okay. So I went home, and I just started jotting down things. And I had a couple like ideas for characters in mind, but I never really tried on them anything. And so I had an idea for a model character, and I went, all right, well, what can we do with this? And I've always kind of been into that airhead idiot, Zoolander character in movies where, almost every movie that I've enjoyed has that type of character. And I've always just thought they were so funny. So you know what? I focus so much on wrestling. I'm just going to go the complete opposite. And I'm going to be this guy who just thinks wrestling is nothing. He's easy. Anyone can do it. And, I just want to do it. And I'm going to be a model who thinks he can wrestle. And we cut this promo where I was messing up all these words and I was just talking about how I could do this. And I sent in that and like 2 other promo videos, and Woods filmed them, and we sent him in, and Dusty Rhodes texted me back emailed me back, and he goes, there might be something to this Tyler Breeze thing. He goes, let's talk. And I said, okay. And we went in there and I started cutting promos. And that's when I started to go, oh man, like this has nothing to really do with wrestling. Like it's not let me tell you something, brother promo, but this is wrestling. This is exactly what wrestling is. And I'd cut a promo and everybody would pop and everybody would laugh. And I'd go, oh, there might be something here. And also this is easy. I can do this all day. And then it started to kind of snowball. And I went, man, why didn't you guys just tell me like this is all I had to do? I was trying so hard to, I'm going to give 110% and I'm going to do this. And it was like, you're an idiot. You're nobody cares about the wrestler promo. They care about the characters. And I went, this guy is a character. And, worst case scenario, I forget my promo and I could just act like an idiot. And again, it was like foolproof. And I went, and you guys like this? Oh my God. Okay. This is where we're at. And then that's when my focus changed. That's when everything changed and it started to really click. And I went, damn, man, I wasted a lot of time.
What were the other 2?
One was a snowboarder. He was kind of like a snowboarder stoner guy.
Dude, you would have had to carry a snowboard with you all over the place?
I had an idea where I was going to wrestle in like snow pants.
Oh,
and dude, I would have died. And,
see, if I would have been there for the evaluations, I would have picked that for at least a week just to teach the lesson that like, you don't like this, do you?
Yeah. Luckily, no one liked that one. Otherwise, I would have been dying, man. Florida, wrestling in the Florida heat in snow pants. And then the other one was kind of like a darker version, because at that point I'd just been like a baby face. Like I'd never been a heel before. I was always just a baby face, young kid who had no personality. And so I had kind of like a darker heel version of that character. And there was really nothing much to it. It was just I wanted to be a heel. I really wanted to show a different side of me. And it was just, it's hard to say, hey, turn me heel. And they go, well, no, like we need you as a baby face. And why would we turn you heel? Like this, we've never seen you as a heel. So they need to see that part. And so I kind of pitched that one. There wasn't really anything to it. And even as we were filming it, like this one's okay, the snowboarder's okay, but me and Woods are laughing as we're doing the Tyler Breeze one. And we went, we're having too much fun with this one. There's no way they're going to like this one. And then that was the only one that they even wanted to see more of. But we kind of knew like that was the one 100% that I put most into, you know what I mean?
You had to know, I don't know if you knew it out the gate or not, but you had to know that like with the Tyler Breeze character and a heel like that, you basically just signed your bump card away because you were just going to become a machine for a lot of bigger dudes, right?
Well, and luckily that was kind of what I was anyway, where it was like a blessing and a curse. Like if anyone ever needed to try out a move or, do something, it was, grab Dalton. He can take any move. He can bump on anything, whatever. And it's just like, it's a blessing and a curse. You're always going to be around. You're always going to be needed, but they're going to beat the hell out of you with everything because you can take everything and sell, you know what I mean?
Right. And then you're stuck taking no, we haven't tried this yet, but we're just going to try it. Right.
Oh yeah. Hop in the ring. Let's try this one. All right. I guess.
There's a clip going that I saw not too long ago of you in there with, you're supposed to be caught by Mark Henry.
Yeah.
It looks like, right.
Yep.
And you just get launched. It was Otis.
Titus.
Or Titus, yes.
It was
Titus.
Yeah.
Titus at like 19 feet tall, and Mark Henry only at like 16 feet tall, and just launches you. Yeah. Did you see your life flash before your eyes or what?
No, honestly, I burst out laughing because the whole scenario was so ridiculous, and we laugh about it all the time. It was Martin Luther King Day, and they had pieced together, a white team versus a black team. Essentially, it was Titus, Mark, Truth, and then they put Neville on there against me, I think Ascension and Stardust, Cody. And they wanted, I think Neville was doing the I have a dream promo, and he was just appalled. He was like, I can't say this. I will not say this. No way. And so we end up going out there, And the finish of the match was supposed to be Titus grabs me, throws me over his head, Mark catches me, world's strongest slam, and then Neville hits his red arrow 1, 2, 3. And so we go out there and we're doing it, and Titus catches me, he throws me, and as he's throwing me, I'm flying through the air, and I can see that Mark's kind of looking off to the side, and so he can't fully see me, but I just feel my stomach kind of glance over his head, and I just burst out laughing, and I went, oh no, and I fall on the ground, and I go, don't pick me up, don't pick me up, and he picks me up and hits me with his slam, and then Neville hits his thing, and we come back through the curtain, and Titus and Mark just start yelling at each other. And it was just like, why are you throwing him so hard? You missed him. I didn't do that. You into business. And like, we're just going, oh no, like we've turned everybody against each other on Martin Luther King Day. And like, now they're yelling at, they're going to fight and gorilla. And so we're all just kind of laughing. And I remember just like thinking to myself, I think I came back to the back and everyone was like, you okay? You all right? And I went, yeah. I said, oh my God, man. I said, that was too funny. I was laughing my head off at that.
Wow. So what you're basically saying is out of all of that, Mark Henry still had to get his shit in.
Oh yeah, he picked me up, hit a slam, everything. I started laughing my head off, and Neville picked up the win, of course.
The smart money would have been to just let it go, hit the arrow,
just
done
leave
it.
Me, just leave me, man. Hit the
leave
yep.
there, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That is so good. I want to ask you about a couple of things. Thank you so much for those of you that are just joining us in this whole thing, as you can see or hear. We're talking with Breeze, formerly Tyler Breeze of WWE fame. Now he's moved on to kind of WWE fame because now you got the up, down, down stuff going on.
That's right.
Have you always been a big gamer?
I have. Yeah, I grew up playing games. I grew up always playing games, playing video games, all that stuff. I just like the like competitive, board games, video games. I've always kind of been into it. And especially, once we started getting on the road and doing whatever, like, you need stuff to do, man. You just got time to chill. So video games have always kind of been a piece of it.
Yeah, it's not like the old days where you could sit down and like play cards or pull out a chessboard or stuff like that. Everybody's got a Steam Deck, right?
Yeah. Yes. Same but different.
Amazing. And of course, we've mentioned it briefly already. You have now taken on the moniker of trainer. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting because that's always a thing that I've always said, even for myself. I'm part owner in a school called Crossbody Studios out here in Cambridge, Ontario as well. And it was always brought up to me, why not train people? And for the longest time, I was like, I don't know. Like I'm super busy doing my thing and doing that or whatever. But at the end of the day, to me, and tell me if I'm wrong or what it's like with you, but to me, it was always, you're only as good as what you can give back, like what your legacy leaves you. And what does that leave you if you can't pass it on to somebody else? Mm-hmm. For myself, I was fortunate enough to have this information and this knowledge given to me by somebody else, and to just hoard it and let that be the end of the line was always, I just didn't feel right about it. You know what I mean? So sure. you have to partake in the, of giving that knowledge onto somebody else.
Yeah.
Was it always a thing for you that you wanted to teach pro wrestling, or was there, a time came along, a light's clicking?
So I think a lot of that too, I gotta give Lance credit for it, man. Like he, obviously he was still young when he was teaching, he's still a young guy anyway. So I think he started school when he was 35 and he did it for like 15 years. And then he could have kept going, but he decided to stop. And I remember when I was in there, again, it kind of goes back to, you're going to make your money for about 5 years. And I went, okay, well, what do you do after that? And he goes, people do different stuff. Like you got different options. And, but I thought it was really smart that he was if you can be if you can make a good enough name for yourself and you can open up a school and teach, he loved it. And I went, okay, I said, that's always an option. It's just a matter of when the time is to pull that trigger. You know what I mean? And, so I had always kind of thought about it that at the end of the line, whenever it was, that's a great option and coaching people. But it's one of those things where you don't know if you're going to be a good coach or not, because not everybody who knows how to do this is a great coach. And also some people who, maybe they never made it to where they wanted to, they could be great coaches. So you never really know unless you try. But luckily, as I kind of got to NXT and we started kind of doing what we're doing, I almost started kind of training there a little bit where we were all learning together.
Okay.
But there was like a good group where it was like Sasha, Bailey, Charlotte, where we were kind of, I wasn't fully training them, but I was helping them as I was figuring stuff out. I was also cluing them in on like, oh, we'll try this and try this and try this. And I remember seeing that kind of play out, and I'm standing at the curtain and I go, I'm watching their matches. And as they're doing what we talked about, I'm going, yes, and I'm getting that same fulfillment that I would get out of a match from them doing it. And when they come back and they're smiling and I'm smiling, I'm going, yes, that was what we talked about. That was what you need to do every time. And I went, that was really fulfilling. And so then I knew like that was, eventually, whenever the time is right, coaching is very, very fulfilling and a very good option. And so I kind of knew it was heading there at some point, but obviously being full-time on the road, it's very difficult. And then we kind of came to that time when, but between myself and Spears, I said, between the two of us, we could definitely pull this off. And we just kind of went, yep, let's do it. And we started it. And it, luckily we are very, very the same thinking, because I'm not specific, but I'm very specific on certain things about training. I didn't want to just, grab some random person and go, hey, you're going to help me train because, you're a wrestler. No, I think there's certain things that I think are right and certain things that I think are wrong. And I'm very specific on technique and the same stuff that was kind of ingrained in me from Lance. And luckily, Spears is the exact same way. So, as I'm about to say something, he's saying the same thing. And I went, man, this is perfect. You're about the only guy that I could do this with. And as soon as we started it, we went, yep, we made the right decision here. Cause it was that fun watching the light bulbs go off with people. You're going, man, this is cool. This is like, they're getting a lot from this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ronnie's always been one of those guys that, I've said from day one, he gets it.
Yeah.
There's that. And that's really a phrase that I've used for years and years and years, seeing people come and go. Is like, you either get it or you don't get it. And there's nothing wrong with not getting it, but some people just get it.
Yeah.
Right. And Ronnie's been one of those guys that gets it, you know, all the way from the time when he punches like The Rock. Yeah.
I always there's funny pictures of him. There was one, I think, that was on a poster, and he's wearing this little sleeveless shirt, and he looks to be about 130 pounds, and he looks like Eminem. And I just started laughing, and I just keep it around just every now and then to go like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's like, oh God. Right. But yeah, man, he's good at what he does.
He's very good at what he does. And so it's no surprise, that the two of you would get along great to open up a school. Before you get to that point, though, you're still, you're going from NXT, FCW and stuff like that, and then you get called up, right? You're doing some stuff there. Now, up to this point in this conversation, when we said what's next, it's always just been a new development in the character or a new character altogether. And then somebody, who was it? I want to know, because they'll make my list, my Chris Jericho list. Who was the bright-idead SOB that said, you know what this guy needs? This guy needs a girl.
I wish I could tell you. I don't know. It was
really?
it was one of those things that, at the time, NXT, so FCW to WWE, there was a gigantic disconnect. Like, you were kind of on an island on your own, and like it didn't even really feel like you were there. NXT got us closer, but there was still a divide where, like, if you got called up from NXT, you might be the same character, you might be a different character, they might change something, or almost guaranteed they would change something. So like Enzo and Cass, they took Carmella away, and it was like, it was always like a little tweak just to make it different from NXT to the main roster. So I was up and I was doing house show loops and dark matches all the time. I think I did it for like a year or two. And I knew that eventually I was going to debut. But again, I was very specific on how I made Tyler Breeze. I made him, you didn't really know if he was straight. You didn't really know if he was gay. He was kind of on that fence. Like, it could go either way, but I didn't need anybody. I didn't need anybody to talk for me. I didn't need a girl. I didn't need a guy. I didn't need anybody. So I remember there was one live event, and I saw Tyler Breeze with Summer Rae, and I went, okay, like, what is this? And I remember going in and even going like, hey, why is Summer with me? Just checking. And they went, hey, it's not a thing. Like, they're just, I think she was there and she needed something to do. And this was an idea that someone had. And I went, all right. So she came out with me for like one match. Then all of a sudden, like, I was on a dark match and she was with me, and I went, okay. And then all of a sudden, I think the next week they said, all right, we're going to debut you. Summer's going to come out and she's going to be with Dolph. And then, now she's going to introduce you. And I went, oh, man, like nothing against Summer, but I like, is she my girlfriend or like, what is happening here? And they were like, I don't know if she's your girlfriend, but like she's with you. And it would kind of, it was all over the place a little bit. And I went, okay, well, this is going to change the dynamic of like what this character is. So like, how should I treat her? Because I'm still like Tyler Breeze loves himself. That's the whole point. He doesn't like anybody else. He doesn't want to be around anybody else, let alone have a girl with him. And I think there was a couple times when it was like, put your arm around her or slap her ass or whatever. And I was like, oh man, like now this isn't, we're going in a different direction with this. And I just didn't feel it. And so I had no clue what it was, but it was just one of those things where like, don't worry, it's not happening. And then the next week it's happening. And I went, all right.
Wow. And it wasn't like, no offense to Summer Rae or anything like that. I'm sure she's a lovely person, but it wasn't like she was like, had fantastic microphone skills and you needed that. It was just this random, like 1 week, all of a sudden you're like, why, what's going on here? It was really weird. It was almost like, oh shit, we've got too many people in the back right now.
Yeah.
We gotta find something for somebody, right?
And I think that was a little bit it, because I think at the time she was with Dolph and they were doing like a little romance story or whatever. And then so the whole point was that she was going to introduce me and now I'm going to take on Dolph. And the heat is because he was with her and he dumped her or whatever it was. And so it was an idea, I guess, to introduce me that somebody thought was good. But in reality, it was, I guess it got me on SmackDown. It got me to where I was supposed to be, but I don't know if it was the strongest way to present that character. It was just, someone's idea. And sometimes that's just how it goes and you get through it and you move on to the next thing.
It's crazy that it's always just this never ending cycle. And, I've said this before myself, there's two types of wrestlers, right? There's the guys that like the door gets opened wide for them as soon as they show up and boom, straight to the moon. Mm-hmm. Right. And then there's the guys that, that like work and work and work 10, 15 years before they even get a sniff. Mm-hmm. Right. You're talking, the difference between a guy like a Brock Lesnar, mm-hmm. right. And maybe a Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. So that's always my go-to. That's always, there's a very two clear paths. There's the Brock Lesnar where you see him walk in, he's going to get the world just handed to him and whatever, and nothing against him. It's just no one is built like a Brock Lesnar. I am very clearly not a Brock Lesnar. But the other path is the Kofi Kingston, the Dolph Ziggler, the Jeff Hardy. Like you're around and you're always around and you're consistent and people get used to seeing you. And, the guys who come and they go and they come and they go, but you're always still there. And by about that 5-10 year mark, all of a sudden, Jeff Hardy's the champion of SmackDown, or Kofi becomes Kofi Mania, or, Dolph, you build this underground following where the people know, but they don't know that like, this is our guy. Why don't they do anything with our guy? And then finally, again, it's just a genuine underground following to where you lose and you lose and you lose and you lose, and they love you even more. And finally, they give it to you. But those are usually the two clear paths that you get, and you usually know which one you're in.
Yeah, Bryan Danielson, perfect example.
100%.
Like I'm going back early 2000s. I'm out west working, those ECCW shows.
Oh yeah,
for Dave Republic and American Dragon is on the show. Him and Kazina, are doing the loop together out there. Right. And I'm working against Moondog Manson. But then you look at, you know what I mean? You look at a guy like Dragon, like Danielson, who's exactly that guy.
Yeah.
The downside to it, though, in my opinion, is that at the end of the day and at the end of the run, I'd rather walk like Brock Lesnar than a Shawn Michaels, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Has that been a factor for you yet? Has there been any injuries? And is that a factor like why you're like, you know what, this school thing, like, and now I have the opportunity to teach people how to do it the right way. Maybe that needs to come into play a little bit faster than I would have thought.
Honestly, no. Honestly, I've been very, very, very lucky, and I attribute that again to Lance, man. He taught me the right way. He taught me how to protect myself. I think he'd include me in that, like, hey man, you're a smaller dude. People are going to love doing moves to you, just so you know. And he goes, you have to bump properly. You have to take care of yourself. And that's the same stuff that we tell everybody. Like, there's only so many ways to protect yourself, and bumping properly is the right way. And, getting a hand up on certain things, and don't be a hero and stuff. And, there's a science to doing this properly and protecting yourself so that you're somewhat of a human on the other side of it. And luckily, again, Lance taught the hell out of me to where that's the exact same stuff that me and Spears teach as well, is the safety of what we do, because wrestling's awesome, but you can get pretty hurt doing it. You know what I mean? And so luckily, as I kind of went, I got very good at protecting myself from, big guys, gigantic guys who, not that they're bad, but they can do some damage if they wanted to. So man,
falling, right?
Yep. And so I kind of figured it out, and I've been very, very lucky in terms of injuries. I've never had a surgery. I still feel great. I still wrestle daily. Like at the school, we're still putting on matches, and I'm taking indie bookings and stuff like that. So all that stuff is I'm still good. I've been very smart in how I wrestle, especially, in today's landscape where unfortunately I see a lot of young kids who they're excited, or they want to do what they see on TV. And it's like, man, you guys are getting dumped on your head on the apron or on the floor, and you're doing all this stuff and you're bleeding everywhere. And it's like, you're going to have a short career, man. Like, do some history review and look at the generations before us and why the majority of them either aren't alive or they're not doing well. And it's because of how they worked, man. And then we kind of learned from that. And then now the generation after us is kind of reverting back to where you go, man, like, okay, it's whatever you want it to be. But I know when I'm, 50 and 60, I want to be able to move my head back and forth, and I want to be able to bend down and lay down and get up and work out and run and, do all that other stuff. So, luckily, I've been very smart in how I do certain things.
Yeah, I am of that last generation of dumbasses. That's the God's honest truth.
Sure.
I remember I'm 96, 97 when I started. So it's that early 2000 stuff where like balls out. ECW is the greatest thing in the world.
Right. That's right.
You walk into a venue and you're like, what's the highest thing I can jump off of in here? You know what I mean? And it definitely, it shortens everything.
Yeah.
It's funny and it's weird when you think about it, though, because it's almost like I'm sitting here having these same conversations with Ronnie, that I've had with him on many, many occasions. And it comes back to the fact that, like, the basics are the absolute most important thing. And you're not going to be able to, because for yourself right now that, like, it doesn't matter. You can have somebody in there for years and years and years, right? Until they get to that system, if that's where they're going, everything that you teach them is just basically how to protect yourself, how to fall back on those basics, how to always have a base, so to speak, right? But after that, it's put your boots on, get in your car, starve, hope, pray, beg, borrow, all of those things just to get a sniff.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get a sniff, right? So you're fortunate that you've been in Florida this time, because that seems to be like a fantastic place. It's warm, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Paradise, man. Paradise.
and wrestling seems to be a thing in Florida, right?
Yes. Well, and especially too, with the performance center popping up and everything else, it's kind of a hub. So a lot of people, love passing through. And like you said, it's paradise here, man. Like, stuff's cheap. There's no state tax. It's sunny almost all the time. Like, it's tough to want to go back in the snow.
And you're pumping out some students now that are actually, like, doing some things. Have you had, and a lot of the students that you do get out of the flatback school there, you deal with a lot of female wrestlers. There's no doubt about it. Is there a difference for you guys when trying to get girls ready as opposed to trying to get some of the guys ready? And the reason that I ask this is because we're in a time now where there seems to be a lot more injuries in wrestling right now.
Yep.
And this is the conversations that I've had with your partner in the past. And when we talk about some of the stuff that some of these people do, you talk about them wanting to go out there and be acrobatic. Not everybody can be a Kofi Kingston. Not everybody can be a Neville. Not everybody can do those types of things. And you've got people hitting, I'm starting off the match with double 450s into a burning spiral scorpion buster, whatever. You know what I mean? And all of this has changed. Before, it was very flat-based wrestling, and grappling was the base for it and stuff like that. And then over time, more acrobatic things start to happen, and DDTs end up showing up into wrestling, and then more flips. And apparently, the more you flip, the harder the impact is on your opponent for some reason. But all of these things happen. But there is always one thing that never, ever changes, and that's human anatomy. That's the bone structure of a human. That is the ability for that human to take that kind of impact, right? So at your school, when you're teaching these young adults, right, how to get ready for this stuff, how do you stop them from defeating themselves, being, you know what I mean? That whole, I'm going to do everything under the sun, right?
In the end, people are they're going to do what they're going to do. Right. Yep. So we'll tell them, like, we'll tell him, we'll teach you anything you want to know, but we very much put the importance on the stuff that matters, the having a character, the selling. I know for me, my biggest thing is probably technique and selling. Yep. So we hammer the technique home and we go, technique never changes, ever, 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 ever. Technique never changes. The way you run the ropes never changes. The way you take care of somebody never changes. Even if you are dead tired, your technique should not change. You should be able to take care of someone and take care of yourself. That is above and beyond everything else that matters. Then again, we'll teach you. I think we even say, like, we're going to teach you the basics, and there's a million variations to this. There's a million moves. We're going to teach you enough to get you where you need to go. And then at usually about the halfway mark, we open the gates and we go, all right, guys, if you have any requests, this is where you ask us. And we'll even say, you don't need to request moves. You can request other ideas for, cutoffs or hope spots or any of that type of stuff. It's stuff that you've seen that we have not taught you yet. If you want to learn it, we'll show you how to do it properly. And there's some kids who, once we open those gates, they go, Swanton, 450. And you go, okay, but just so you know, if you're going to do a Swanton or a 450, you better be able to do a headlock and a headlock takeover and all that other stuff. Because if you don't, as your coaches, we're going to tear you apart and we're going to go, forget about the other stuff. I need this, because otherwise I don't care about, the cool stuff that you're doing. And, even we'll say, like, there's a million schools out there. If you want to learn moves, go to the other schools and they'll show you. But we are going to show you why the moves matter and how to have a career at this and how to get where you're going and how to work for TV and all the other stuff that the people who run these schools, if they haven't been a part of WWE, they don't know how to, work for time. They don't know how to work for cameras. They don't know this stuff, but they can do, again, a million more moves than I can do, but it doesn't matter because my career speaks for itself compared to other people's, you know what I mean? So you can try to get that through to people. And I think probably one of the most things that we say is, just because it's on TV doesn't mean it's right. It just means that that's working right now or whatever, or, they were allowed to do something or whatever you want. But in the end, you need to think longevity. Not every match needs to be a WrestleMania match. You're going to have another match. So just because 10 moves doesn't mean you need to put 10 into every match you have. You need to start thinking bigger picture. And Some people get it. Some people don't. All we can do is just kind of try to reiterate that and focus on, again, the basics, where if we get to week 6 or 7 and you're struggling with, headlocks, headlock takeovers, tackles, stuff like that, if that gets sloppy, but you're wanting to do, RKOs and everything else, then we're going to go, let's stop for a second. Why is this like this? Why is this like this? And you're losing sight of what you want to do here. And again, you can toss it out there. You can lead the horse to water, but it's up to them.
It all comes down to footwork.
Yeah.
That's really what it is, man.
Feet don't lie, man.
You know this as well as I do. And I know you know this. I've never but I know your partner. So I know your style. And it's the same style as myself. It all comes down to footwork.
Yep.
Right.
You can tell within about 5 minutes if somebody knows what they're doing or if they don't.
Yeah.
It was one of the footwork.
I had this story, little side story quickly. When I was younger and I had moved up to Canada, I had trained in karate already when I was a kid, right? I had gone to, some Tang Sudo classes. I got my black belt in Tang Sudo under Bob Barrows in Las Vegas. No problem. I move up to Toronto, Canada, and I didn't find a place to train. I go into a Hapkido place that somebody had pointed me out to. I'm standing there in front of Master Wang Yin-Cheek, and he says to me, have you ever done anything before? Just being very humble about it. And I'm like, a couple of things, right? The last thing I'm going to do is walk in and be like, sure, I'm a black belt.
That's right.
Right. That's how you get your ass beat.
Yep.
And so I'm like, a couple of things. He goes, you know how to punch and kick? I'm like, yes. He goes, let me see what you've got. I show him my punches and my kicks. Within 3 minutes, he's like, you're a Tang Soo Do guy. I know exactly what you are. I know exactly where you come from, and I know exactly what you've learned.
Yeah,
because of the footwork, because
That's
of
right.
what you learn, right?
Yep.
So it's spot on, right?
Yep.
Who's been out of your school right now? Who's been so far your greatest accomplishment? I know I'm asking you to pick a favorite kid,
Sure.
right? But there's always going to be a greatest accomplishment, and then after that, who should people keep an eye on?
So this is one of those things where, again, like, I don't know if you can pick a favorite. We have a good handful of people that we consider there are people. The big difference between, you can't really look at success wise because guys and girls are very differently. Are very different. So we've had some kids who, they've appeared on AEW and stuff like that, but they're younger and they haven't developed into men yet. So they're not going to get picked up by a WWE yet because they don't look how they're supposed to yet. But they're moving in the right direction. They're doing everything they need to, but they take a little bit more time. Whereas a woman who's, even if you're 18, 19, 20, you don't really need to, put on muscle mass or you're already kind of you've got the look that you need to get where you want to go. So you can't really base it on that. They move a little bit quicker, if they pick it up and if they're kind of ready and if they have the right work ethic. So in NXT, we have Kiana James, who's hard worker. She immediately picked it up. She's one of those ones who will beat herself up more than you have to. And we were hard on her too, just because we knew what she could accomplish. And so she was a very quick one to get picked up, and she's been killing it on NXT. We have Harley Cameron over on AEW, who is the same thing. She's got tons and tons of personality. She can sing. She can do everything you need. Who, again, hard worker, which is really the only way that you're going to get ahead anyway. So we've got one over in AEW. We've got one in NXT. Xia Li was already with NXT when I was still there, and she asked for some help. She asked for us to work with her. We worked with her, and again, hard worker. She put the pieces together, and all of a sudden she took off, and now she's been on Raw for a couple of years. And then, over on the guys' side, we got Colton and Austin Gunn, who just tons and tons of personality, super hard workers, just really kind of putting the pieces together and killing it over on AEW. I think they were the tag champions. Now they're the ROH tag champions. Like, just really kind of, again, it's you just look and it's one of those things where you go, you get it. You get it. You're not where you are not your finished product yet, but you are on your way and you're doing good. And again, we have another girl, Noelle. I think she wrestles as Valentina Rossi, she's been around here and there. People have seen her, and she's just a matter of time. She's done everything right. She's got the right look, tons of personality. She can check all the boxes. It's just literally right place, right time. And she's not the only one. We have a couple others who it's just a matter of time because they're on the right path to do what they want. Again, it's just, the right person looking at the right time and going, let's give you a chance. And, trying to keep them motivated is another tough thing because you see, you guys all start off together and one's getting signed and one's doing this and you're going, don't get discouraged. Like, everybody's path is different. Don't compare. But everybody who's, one of our flatbacks people, they're good. They got the right work ethic, and it's just a matter of time for them. You know what I mean? There's even some guys who right now are they're working on Raw and SmackDown. We've been working with Zion. We've been working with Odyssey. Who again, it's just a matter of time before they get to do their thing, but they've really been kind of honing in what they need to. And we got a good group, man. And which, like you said, is lucky. I think even we were looking at Lance. Lance had the school open for about 15 years. And I think you only get about a handful of people who, really want to do this for a living. And so even we're coming up on 5 years, I think. June will be 5 years. And we've already got a good handful of people who are just killing it. So
what's next for you then? Do you continue to do the teaching? Are you looking to get back into the WWE? Are you looking to go talk to, crazy Uncle Tony? Like, what's next for you?
I've kind of gone back and forth on stuff. So, I whenever I got released back in 2020, I think, or 2021, I kind of was burnt out a little bit. I was burnt out on being in WWE. I'd been in WWE for 11 years at that point. I'd kind of done the road thing. It beat the hell out of me. I was burnt right out. Went through a divorce, went through all the usual stuff that you hear people going through. So I kind of needed a breather. So I just kind of chilled out. I just kind of went, you know what, let's take a breath here and let's enjoy my life a little bit. And then I kind of really liked waking up in my own bed and, taking an hour to eat breakfast and doing all that, the usual, stuff that I guess it's almost like borderline retired. And, so I kind of enjoyed that. And then, doing the school, I got my wrestling fix. And so a year, I didn't really mean to take any time off, but a year turned into 2 years, into 3 years. And then I went, you know what? Like, I'm not old and retired here, man. You know what I mean? Like, there's still some gas in the tank. So September, I actually took a couple of bookings and I went out there and I had a blast. I actually worked Spears on a show and I worked Cardona, and I went, you know what? It's still in there. I still have fun with it. So I took some bookings in September. I took some in October. Then I had the birth of my son in November. So I was kind of enjoying that part, November, December, getting our feet wet with new parenthood. And then now I just started opening up my calendar again to take some bookings to kind of get back out there and keep doing, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, between up, down, down, between taking some indie bookings, between doing the school. If something else pops up and all of a sudden there was a spot, back with WWE or whatever, I'd go, all right, cool. Let's talk about it. I'm kind of open to whatever. Cause again, I'm not at that point yet where I'm either too beat up or I'm just out of it or I'm done with it. I think I'm open to anything, which is kind of cool because again, something could pop up or something couldn't pop up. And either way, I'm okay.
Congratulations
Thanks,
on the child. November baby.
November
Beginning,
baby.
Middle, or end?
November 3rd.
November 12th.
There you go.
Right here.
There you
Right?
go.
So,
Yeah.
so you have a Scorpio on your hands.
I do.
Oh boy. Good luck for you too, pal.
That's right.
Breeze, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today. It's been an absolute honor for me to sit here and pick your brain a little bit and to let some of our listeners know a little bit more about you and what it is, what's going on with you. How can people find you? How can they check you out? How can they send you tips, donations, crazy gifts, all of that fun stuff?
Sure. So on my socials, Instagram and Twitter at gorgeous with 3 M's. Every Tuesday night, you can find us on Up, Down, Down on the YouTube channel. Every Thursday morning, we're on the Up, Down, Down YouTube channel. And we got tons of cool stuff on there. So just check out Up, Down, Down. We just started doing Fanatics Live, which is a live chat auction platform with WWE. We got a new partnership. We've done it a couple times. It was actually really cool. We did one with X-Pac. We did one with McFoley. We did one on the pay-per-views. So we got something really cool that people are starting to get into. So there's just another avenue to do it. If you're interested in learning how to wrestle, flatbackswrestlingschool.com. We got tons of stuff on there. If you have any questions about it, we just started adding in match critiques. If you wanted to, maybe not do the course, but you wanted to get our take on stuff, you can send in your matches and we'll watch them for you. So we're starting to kind of open up some more possibilities there. But yeah, that's kind of the main ones, I think.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, for anybody out there, please go check out Flatbacks. If nothing else, go camp out. You know what I mean? Get an autograph, sell it on eBay, do whatever it is that you're going to do.
There you go.
It's a couple of guys that are definitely some of the best minds in the business, without a doubt, who have accomplished a lot of great things. So, I mean, if you're going to learn from the best, right?
There you go.
Awesome. Tyler Breeze.
Cool.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me, man.
Everybody stay right there. This is the Law Live Audio Wrestling. We're going to wrap this whole thing up. We'll be right back after this.